I am not only the nicest person that many people have ever met, I'm also the happiest person that I know. That's a really smug and a little bit inane way to start a talk. I wouldn't normally say it first, but I often say it in conversations, and I say it for a number of reasons. The first reason I often say it, even in London, people like to be around positive people. So saying you're happy, that's a good start. The second reason I often say it is it projects confidence. Now, I'm quite fearful of this arena for public speaking, but saying I'm happy, if I wouldn't have just given the game away, would possibly project confidence. Third reason is, and here's the great thing, I actually think it might be true. I think I genuinely am the happiest person I know. Last reason, and the reason I've said it at the start of a little speech, is because I'm happy. Because yes, I know that I'm lucky. Yes, I have a family that support me. But mostly I'm happy, I think, because I know exactly what my purpose is. And more than that, I know that my purpose is a good one. I know exactly how to achieve my aims. And that is a great revelation that came to me a few years ago. And I also have the privilege to be in a position where I can go and attack my aims and purpose. And not everybody has that permission or that privilege, unfortunately. In 15 minutes, what I would like to share with you is how we're going to achieve world peace. And I'm not joking. Please laugh. Please laugh. But I'm not joking. Also, we will tackle climate change better if you listen to me. Just listen, okay? Again, you'll see I'm not really joking. This one is a little bit arrogant, and I really don't want to come across as arrogant too much, but I'm going to identify your purpose. Most of you may think you've got one. In fact, the secret is you all already know what your purpose is. And lastly, this is one I've just talked about a little bit, but I'm going to give you another secret to happiness, okay? All right, cool. So, I was 16, and you may have heard a quote from Mark Twain. Mark Twain once said that the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. And we've all been born, and you know, if you listen to me, we'll all find out why today if you don't already know. But April 15th was another important and pivotal day for me. As a 16-year-old, I grew up in Liverpool, and I happened to be at the Hillsborough disaster in the Leppings Lane end, and unfortunately, a lot of people are aware of the Hillsborough disaster because it was on TV and the Justice campaign has been going for 25 years. I was in the middle of where 96 people died, and I learned a lot that day. I learned that life is incredibly fragile. I learned that life is unfortunately too often short. As I was pulled up to the top tier of the stands during the incident, I also realized that perspective and context needs to be provided to everybody. I was pulled to the top tier, and there was a Liverpool fan who basically told me to get back down into where everything was, that I was spoiling the match for everybody. Now, this is a Liverpool fan who would be mortified to find out 10 minutes later that 96 people had died. In fact, he found out there and then. I told him, listen, mate, because I'm a Scouser, so that's how we talk. Listen, mate, 100 people are dead down there. So I learned that people, even close to it, who would really be sympathetic, don't always have the right context. The next thing I learned on that day was when I was waiting for my father outside, my dad was in a different part of the stadium, there was a man who'd lost his son who decided that his job right there and then was to support a 16-year-old who was in shock. And until my dad came, I was looked after by a man in an awful position. I learned that humans can behave in the most incredibly beautiful way. April 15th became a big day to me, and I thought maybe this is an important day for everybody. Maybe cosmically, April 15th has some real significance. I found out that the Titanic sank on April 15th. And Abraham Lincoln was shot on April 15th. And then I noticed as I go through life that Boko Haram kidnapped 200 girls in Nigeria on April 15th, and the Boston bombing happened on April 15th. Luckily, I guess, I also found out that a guy called John Paul Sartre died on April 15th. Now, I'm from not luckily for him, by the way, but for me, I needed to read some of his materials. And he put things into context for me. I would never have, the school I'm from would never have got to Jean-Paul Sartre at any point. I believe this. And I'd lost my view of myself being impregnable. I knew life was short. And I understood from reading through some of his other works that the only meaning in life is the meaning that you make for yourself. And luckily, after that, there was another person who, more tangible and I could touch and talk to her, who also directed my shock and frustration and fear at that point. And as a 16-year-old, about 6 months later, walking into school, an incredibly underperforming school that I guess would be somewhere similar to the north of Edinburgh, or parts of London and parts of Manchester and parts of the Western world that are underprivileged and deprived. And she caught me, and that's not me when I'm 16, by the way, that was a few months ago. She caught me and she said, "Chris, you are really messing this up." And she was the first person after Hillsborough who gave me a reality check. Everybody had given me sympathy, but she gave me a reality check. And that check was, you have a responsibility to the people who died at Hillsborough to live your life well. You have a responsibility to your community, an underprivileged community in Liverpool, to make the most of your potential. But most of all, Chris, you've got a responsibility to work hard every single day because you know it could end. You've got that insight. Go and do something. And she actually helped me write a life plan all in one day, and that I had to travel and I had to put my life into a context, that I had to find what my purpose was. I said to Mary, I'd like to be a writer. And Mary said, "Chris, I'm your English teacher, you're not very good. Are you okay? Are you okay being a poor writer?" I'm like, yeah, not so much. I'm not that good with the poor thing. And as a 16-year-old in Hale Wood, it didn't sound great. Actually, what she said, because Mary might watch this, I guess, is if you want to be good at something, it will take you a long, long time. And that is good practical advice. She said, if you want to be creative, though, why don't you start a business and make so much money that when you're 40, you can retire and you can write terrible books. And if no one buys them, who cares? This is the way my memory works with it anyway. And I thought nobody I'd ever met was an entrepreneur. I didn't know any business owners where I'm from in Liverpool, not a single one. In fact, not many businesses were staying in business in 1989 in Liverpool. And day after my last exam, I did travel the world, and I stayed away for a couple of years, and I found my purpose. And then I started a business. I started Camp Leaders, which sends 6,000 people to America each year, which is nice. It didn't at first, started really slowly, then Smaller Earth, and then I started other businesses, and then I got to the thing that is the full mechanism by which I live. It's called World Merit. World Merit came after this day, May 21st, 2009. It's a day that a lot of parents would share this emotion. It was the day my first son was born, and he's an incredibly beautiful, intelligent pain in the bottom. But on that day, I realized my job and my purpose, and here's the secret to all our primary purposes. Your purpose is to work really hard for Finn. Your job is to make sure the planet is better for Finn and your daughters and your sons. And that is an obvious statement. That's your primary purpose. What you have to work out is your mechanism by which you're going to achieve that. And I've been inspired by music. I can't play music and I can't sing. That is making the world better for sure. Find your own purpose, mechanism. So the question is, how am I going to do the world peace thing? This is the question I felt on May 21st, 2009, Finn's birthday. Provide the path for world peace. He needs to be in that environment. Tackle climate change and actually gender inequality and all the other problems that are going to knock Finn if we don't release the full weight of talent on the planet. And identify your purpose. I'm going to answer that for you. Just have actually your primary purpose, work hard for Finn. Give the secret to happiness. Come in a second. So Abraham Lincoln died on April 15th. I'm very aware of quite a lot of Abraham Lincoln quotes. And this one really worked for me. As somebody who was changed irreversibly at the age of 16 through the power of, well, a little bit of literature, but mostly from Mary Wilson, in a sense, and the events and the peak experiences of my days, I realized that if we can support youth and anybody who's open for support, but youth particularly for me, then that's the way to go. This quote really motivates me. So thinking about how we can create world peace, I realized we already have everything in place. The aeroplane and mass travel, it's a very recent invention. And in fact, my parents, and certainly my grandparents, would never have traveled anywhere near as much as I have. So they would not have been able to embed themselves into other cultures like I got the chance to do. Things change. Cultural exchange programs are now widespread. And I've made a living from cultural exchange programs. And I know for a fact that when you're embedded in somebody else's culture or they're embedded in yours, that you understand a number of things. That in general, you are exactly the same as each other. You both prefer to laugh than to cry, in general. You all love your children. And that is a fact. Now, how people could not believe that anyway is a little bit beyond me. But cultural exchange goes so far into the detail of understanding that everybody should be made and supported to do that. Not just middle classes from the UK and the US, but everybody, as far as I'm concerned. But why is Mark Zuckerberg equaling it world peace? Well, here's the thing. In the last 10 years, the next generation have, through Mark Zuckerberg and a number of other people, found a way to connect. Every 21-year-old that I meet nowadays has got 1,000 friends. And some of you old people, sorry, I don't know where I'm looking when I say that. Some of you old people will say friends. No, they're not really friends. And I would say to that that's a load of rubbish. They probably speak to those people as much as you do to those so-called friends that you knew 20 years ago and you shared some intimacy moments with perhaps. But it is an intimate relationship often. And better than your friends, I mean, keep those too, of course, but they are international and they are from different beliefs and across different borders. And they are learning that inherently we're all the same. Now, World Merit has our own social media platform with 100,000 people on, and they represent now, an achievement that only came 2 or 3 weeks ago, every country in the world, including North Korea. Our North Korean person defected and lives in South Korea, but I'm claiming her. Some of the conversations and the debates on our platform, and our platform has a very specific purpose, challenge youth to take action. Those actions, we give them merit credits, and those credits make them eligible for incredible opportunities. That's what we do. And 100,000 people taking actions is a sight to behold, and one that I intend to increase. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. So climate change and gender inequality and any problem you can mention, I think, is best tackled by us solving this problem. Social mobility. Somebody from the most deprived parts of this city or any other city does not have the chances they deserve. It's a fact. Lots of people can fight their way out, but when I say lots, it's a small minority of the rest. And there's a number of reasons why social mobility, and this diagram tries to explain my opinion on it, holds people back. It can emanate from low confidence. I think low confidence is the most destructive thing on this planet. But we also have to have the intention to support people to build that confidence. And often traditions and the normal ways of finding talent stop and exclude some people with different accents or different genders. That's still a fact. So let's solve social mobility. Let's work hard, please, for my son. But after that, I promised you to tell you a secret to happiness. Having the privilege to be independent and make choices is not a privilege everybody has. And some of you, even in here, will not be able to have as much choice as I've made for myself now. It's just, I've been very lucky. Another secret to happiness, be as lucky as you can, please. But here's the world's worst acronym. Came up with it yesterday. But I think you'll never remember it. I will. Okay. Having a primary purpose, internationally networked, equals shared success. Yes. Yeah, it's a mouthful. But the point is, we all share a primary purpose. We have to work harder to ensure that those actions, those mechanisms to achieve that purpose are networked. Thank you very much. My name is Chris, and please help us on our mission.